What's up, music lovers? Thanks for clicking on my channel, and welcome to a series called Artists That Deserve More Love, where we take a moment to appreciate bands, musicians, and composers that just don't get as much attention as they deserve. And these can be artists with careers lasting decades, or they can be musicians with 20 followers on Spotify. Whatever the case is, you're missing out if you don't know their music. But before we get into it, if you like hard rock, heavy metal, progressive rock, music in general, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, all of that YouTube stuff. I know it's a cliche to ask, but it really does help the channel grow, so thank you in advance for that. And with that self-promotion out of the way, let's just get right into it and start talking about some underrated bands. Okay, and coming up first on the list is American heavy metal band Armored Saint. Now, if you're into thrash metal at all, you probably know this band as the band that John Bush left before he joined Anthrax. But if that's all you know about them and you've never listened to their music, I think it's safe to say you're missing out. Their debut album is a perfect example of just glorious 1980s, slightly cheesy metal, and they expanded on the sound with their second album, Delirious Nomad. The band hit a bit of a rough patch in the late 1980s with the untimely death of one of their guitarists and some lineup changes and just sort of kind of having growing pains with the times. Despite all that, in 1991 they released what many consider to be their best album, Symbol of Salvation. Shortly thereafter, John Bush left to join Anthrax, and of course the 1990s had a completely different musical landscape to the 1980s, and so Armored Saint kind of missed out on their chance to blow up. They've released several albums since then. However, if you're asking me, I'd say that my personal favorite is still their debut. Pretty much any song from that album is a good place to start. My favorite probably is Glory Hunter. And the next musician I'm going to talk about is Canadian singer-songwriter Heather Dale. Her music is a great mix of traditional folk, a little bit of soft rock, and little hints of pop and show tunes, as well as more experimental world or ambient music. Her lyrics are usually inspired by history or mythology, which, if you're a metalhead, should be something you're already used to. And her discography is very diverse. Her early work is very reminiscent of Sarah McLachlan and even at times Enya. And her music goes from being very experimental to very traditional to almost very rock-based, like her album Road to Santiago. Then she'll have albums like My Celtic Heart or Spark, which are her renditions of songs that are in the public domain, whether they be traditional Irish songs or Christmas songs. For me personally, I most enjoy her albums Road to Santiago, Avalon, and The Green Knight. I feel as though those albums are also her most accessible, so if you're trying to get into her, that's probably the best place to start. Those albums just have a little bit of something for everyone to latch onto. Something else I really appreciate about Heather Dale is that a lot of times her lyrics have a sort of self-aware sense of irony and humor in them without being too over the top. One song in particular, the first one I really latched onto from her, is Black Fox. The song tells the story of a group of people going out for a fox hunt. There's no foxes they can find, so someone just says, yeah, you know, if the devil came by, we'd be able to give him quite the race, and they do find a fox, but it turns out to literally be Satan. And the song ends with them running away from the fox. I love that sense of humor, you know, oh yeah, what, it's not fun when you're the one being chased? Come on, we're just playing a game, bruh. In addition to Black Fox, other standout songs from her are Medusa, King's Sword, The Maiden and the Selkie, and Valley of the Wind. All of those songs should be pretty accessible to someone coming from a folk or soft rock background, except for Valley of the Wind, that is very much a atmospheric, Enya, sort of the type of music you'd hear in a crystal shop or a yoga studio, but look, man, I love that kind of music too, so if that's not your thing, maybe start with those other songs, but... Okay, and the third and final band in this episode is Scottish rock band Biffy Clyro. Kind of hard to describe Biffy Clyro's music. They're sort of pop punk, they're sort of post-grunge, but that doesn't really do their sound justice. I've heard them described as pop rock, progressive rock, alternative metal. You just kind of have to listen to them and make up your own mind as to what they are. There are certain songs where you can see them sort of bordering on metal, but they're always very pop focused and trying to write catchy melodies, but then again, they're also really experimental at times. So I suppose if there was one band that's more popular that I could describe them to, I'd say they're kind of like Muse, but even that is sort of selling them short. And depending on how you feel about bands like Muse, that kind of might inform how you feel about a band like Biffy Clyro. I'd still suggest you go listen to them because even the Muse comparison is not quite accurate. Their breakthrough album in a lot of ways was their fifth release, Only Revolutions, which was released in 2009. If you're curious about getting into Biffy Clyro, that would probably be the best place to start. And if you're listening to Only Revolutions and you wish they were a bit more raw, maybe you can go check out their earlier work. And if you're listening to Only Revolutions and you like their more experimental side, maybe you can go check out their newer stuff. And Biffy Clyro is a band that I like, but I don't have one definitive album that I'm like, yes, for me, that's my favorite album. I sort of more like a lot of different tracks I've heard from them over the years. Some of the standouts to me are North of No South, That Golden Rule, God and Satan, Some Kind of Wizard, and Errors in the History of God. But there you have it. Those are 3 artists that I think deserve to get a bit more attention, and some songs to go check out if you're interested in hearing what they have to offer. And if you think this channel deserves more love, please hit the like button, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. I also have an instrumental song out called Waking Giant. There's a link down below if you want to go check that out. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you at the next video.